Well, Sunday is World Rhino Day, and obviously one of the focuses is going to be on poaching, something that is still out of control as it gets increasingly sophisticated. I mean, the rhino is a result of million years of evolution, so it is an animal that we cannot lose. The Kruger Park has been at the forefront of many developments there. The rhino only been introduced in the 1960s, and I'm talking to two people from there, Sam Ferreira, a sandparks ecologist, and Donnie Pina, head of scientific services at Sandparks. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Jane.
Morning, Jane.
Sam, talk us through the status of the numbers. It's very disputed. Why is that? What's the problem there?
Jane, I think the status of rhinos in South Africa are still good, but not as good as what we would like it to be, and certainly not as good as what it used to be. The African Rhino Specialist Group at the recent CITES meeting reported that South Africa had about 17,700 rhinos in total. That, of course, comprise two different species, a white rhino and a black rhino. We have roughly about 15,500 white rhinos and about 2,000 black rhinos in South Africa. The contribution that comes from different sources. So, for example, about half of the rhinos, the white rhinos, are owned by private rhino owners, and the other half by formal state agencies. And of course, Kruger National Park has always been probably the key population in the world, you know. And this is where a lot of the challenges do realize that we get exposed to anyway. So in that context, at the moment, South Africa's rhinos contribute about 87% of the global white rhino population and about 37% of the global black rhino population. I always say to this to colleagues, if you don't get rhinos right in South Africa, you're not going to get rhinos right anywhere in the world.
All right, so we have to get it right. Tell us about the challenges, Tony.
There's a number of challenges. The rhino themselves are not the challenge because they breed very well. You spoke that they were introduced in the early 1960s. It was a 12-year program. We brought in over 300, and the numbers slowly increased until in around 1990 we had 1,000. By 2000 we had about 2,000 rhino, and then the numbers started rocketing. Year 2010, 13, our rhinos numbers peaked at around 9,500 in the Kruger Park. So the rhinos, if left to their own devices, do extremely well. It's
but
when,
they're not.
But they are not, sadly. So our population has been declining, and it is because of illegal harvesting of rhino for their horns, and that is for us the sad part.
And I mean, I know, you know, poaching is obviously horrific, but it's amazing how many people, other than the poachers, benefit from poaching.
Yeah, well, if we go back to the challenges quickly, Jane, I think one of the things that we have to realize is that there are different ways in which rhinos are kept in South Africa. So there's guys that are keeping rhinos as private property, and that's often on smaller areas. That carries a very different challenge in protecting rhinos, like compared to when you're in a place the size of Kruger, which is the size of Israel. And you can imagine if I ask Israel to protect their country with 400 soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, the point is that the challenge is this: is that we are as soon as you work in the national park context, you work over very large areas, which is a very different context than in the smaller areas. As a result, the guys like the private owners, they have the opportunity, for example, to apply what we call guardian approaches. You can literally make sure that you see your rhino every day. I can't do that in Kruger. There we've got to think about really innovative, different ways. This is why we use a variety of approaches, try to use science to predict where we can do things better, etc., etc. So those are some of the differences in the challenges that one perceives. And I think all these challenges carry different costs and requirements and investments, which is, of course, a key element in trying to maintain the incredible conservation success that South Africa has had with rhinos in general.
Okay, let's talk about the poaching and the others who benefit, other than the poachers, sadly, from this magnificent horn.
Sure, people always talk about the illegal benefits and the criminals that benefit, but there's a whole industry that sprung up around rhinos being under threat and rhinos being endangered. there's vast amount of money being generated by NGOs that are collecting funds from all over the world, private security agencies all over South Africa, people trying to sell new technologies to us. Sam spoke about the difficulties in the Kruger Park with the 1,000-kilometer perimeter fence and this kind of bush. Scientists trying to use opportunity to do all sorts of research on anything from genetics through to cryopreservation of ovums and things. So the legal system, the advocates defending poachers, convicted poachers. We can just go on and on and on about how many people benefit from rhino, but the interesting is almost none of those people are responsible for managing, owning or conserving rhino. The people...
And would more people benefit if we legalize the trade?
That's obviously that will be the case if legalizing the trade would be an option for us. There are several constraints, however, with those sort of things. So, for example, some of the scientific work that has been done highlighted that yes, even if you do legalize trade, you may actually speed up the rate at which rhinos are declining. And you change that if you do two other critical things. One is that you deal with organized crime as a whole, and the other component is that you actually have to deal with some of the challenges that people that are living next to parks doing. And I think those sort of things are the reasons why South Africa, about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a committee of inquiry on rhino horn trade, where the committee advised that there are some certain things that we have to do to get in place that will open up opportunities for us. So in effect, our good conservation creates opportunities to go and do something like trade. Of course, the government went and did some very important aspects. For example, they had a rhino lab, which created a whole range of initiatives that we need to do to address those things that the Committee of Inquiry has done. They have done that. Those effects are starting to come through now. So we should be in a position where the particular governance conditions that we require to be able to exploit our good conservation outcomes in terms of things like trading with rhino horn, etc.
Okay, Sam, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. I mean, it's fascinating hearing how many people benefit from the rhino, and obviously will benefit more if it's alive. We've got a lot more coming up. We're going to be looking at more solutions about how moving rhino to different parks might help, and more of the scientific analysis behind it. But for now, let's have a quick break.